millions in my teeth, I got a lot of shine. Running up the number, that's a lot of crime. Try to take it from me, must be out your mind.
So that is what you call a sort of cinematic fitness video, and I thought I'd take you through the ins and outs of how I filmed it. So the pre-production process, the editing process, and of course the filming process. I'd love it if you could subscribe, and hopefully I'll do more of these. But anyway, let's get to it. This was filming with Chris Barker. He's a personal trainer down in London, and I got in touch with him and I said, hey, do you want to shoot some content? Love what you're doing. For this shoot, it was very much going to be, I go down for like one day, film the content, edit, done. And that's probably a lot of the type of shoots everyone's used to these days. I did my research, my pre-production as best as I could. I sort of looked at photos of the gym, sort of had an idea of what shots could work. And I looked at his page, I looked at what exercises he likes, because it's important with these sort of videos to sort of tailor it towards them as well, so that you get happy clients. So let's talk about everyone's favorite topic, the gear. This was actually the first time I was using the Blackmagic 4K, and I recently switched to it from the GH5. And the reason I did this was because I wanted my films to really look the part. I wanted to prioritize image quality over anything. So whilst others may prioritize autofocus or they may prioritize IBIS, my priority was image quality. And as far as I was concerned, anything else I could sort of work with. So if there's any GH5 users, you'll know that the autofocus is rubbish. So I was kind of used to that already. So I was really interested to see how the picture would turn out. For lenses, I used the Sigma 18 to 35 millimeters f1.8, and I had the Viltrox adapter on it, so I could go down to a 1.2 f-stop, which was really good for getting that really shallow depth of field. I used that lens for pretty much everything apart from the wide shots. So we got the intro and a couple of other shots with, I think when he's slamming the ball down. And that was the Laowa 7.5. So that, no. So I can't find another battery, so I'm actually just going to leave that. So for the wide shots, I used the Laowa 7.5, and I used them with a gimbal. I used the Ronin S, and I tend to only use the Ronin S for wide shots, actually. I'm much more of a fan of that handheld look. Everyone these days in filmmaking is sort of obsessed with these really clean shots, like everything constantly in focus, sort of smooth motion. But with these sort of videos, with fitness videos, I think that sort of moving around, things coming in and out of focus, it all sort of matches the fitness vibe. Doing exercise is exhausting, and so you kind of want that to mirror with the camera movement. I would set my focus and then I wouldn't stress too much about it. But for the gimbal shots, yeah, one or two of the gimbal shots, I would get very smooth just to sort of set the scene, just for some establishing shots. So Chris actually had just a cheap softbox at the gym. So we just used that as a backlight, and that was pretty much it. I didn't use a key light. I just used like the gym lighting for one or two of the shots. I just bought a very little cheap LED light, cost about 20 quid. And I just used that as an extra backlight just to really get that strong contrast going. So in terms of the shoot itself, I basically wanted to speak to Chris and find out what his normal workout routine was, because I wanted to find out what workouts he was about. So he told me that he likes doing squats. He told me that he's into his boxing. So I thought that would be some really good cinematic content. And we basically filmed a workout routine. I wanted to get like 6 or 7 exercises, and for every exercise we did, I made sure I got a sort of not wide shot, but sort of medium shot. So you sort of get the whole of Chris. And then I wanted to make sure I got some tighter shots so that I had some variation going. And so that brings us nicely over to the edit. The first step of the editing, which is usually my first step of editing, is to find the music track. So I wanted something that was really exciting and really was very impactful. And I also wanted something that had a bit of an intro, so something that would build up some suspense. So my intro lasts for 18 seconds. During those 18 seconds, I really wanted to build up the suspense. So I didn't want to reveal too much. So whilst that was difficult, and maybe it was too long of an intro, I wanted to make sure that all the shots were sort of a bit abstract. So you'll see the first two shots are literally just setting the scene of the gym, and it all looks very eerie, very empty. I wanted to make it clear that Chris was the only one working out in the gym. This first shot of Chris, we're keeping with that abstract vibe of not actually showing his face. So I purposely chose a shot where it's just sort of his neck down. And then we got a little cheeky glitch just to sort of add to the suspense, I guess. You got those classic sort of looking up shots, the sort of, you know, I'm getting ready for this. So yeah, you'll see all these shots so far are sort of him getting ready to work out. So, you know, the boxing shot I kept very abstract. The squat one, it's sort of him getting ready. And then finally, just before we get into the really impactful shots, he takes a deep breath and then really goes into the heavy workouts. So you see, as I'm going through this, all the shots are very quick and they're all sort of in clusters. We have the slamming the ball down, so there's about 3 or 4 shots in together. Then we go back to the boxing. I kept returning back to the boxing just because I don't know if it was the lighting or sort of the way the camera was moving around and capturing it, but that was just by far my favorite footage. So I really wanted to keep returning back to that. All of these shots were sort of 3 or 4 takes so that I could get some different angles and enable that continuity. This shot here and this shot here, they were taken a good 5 minutes apart, but you know, putting them together and that way just keeping that continuity going, making this workout look really fast and really intense. Onto color grading. I shot all of this in Blackmagic Raw, so it's an extremely flat profile. You get barely any contrast from this at all, and that way you keep the details in the shadows and the highlights. And it does require quite a bit of color correction and color grading. So if you're sort of in a rush, then this is probably something I wouldn't recommend doing. But I really wanted to get those colors exactly how I wanted it. And I've always had a bit of a love-hate relationship with colors. I used to be absolutely rubbish at color grading. I'm still not the best, but over time I've sort of learned how it works a bit more. So I'll just run you through an example of what I did for pretty much all of these. This clip here, for example, we got our Lumetri scopes here. That is how it comes out from the camera. So let's just start that process of how we actually color graded it. So if I go in here and I add back the Rec 709, that's kind of the first thing you would do. So you start to get that Blackmagic color science in there. And then what we'll do here is we'll just reset so that we can start from scratch. And what I would do is start to play around with the very basic, you know, your basic correction. So I'd add some contrast in. I'd bring the highlights up because I really want to, you know, we got those strong backlights going on. I really want to accentuate those. And then I start to bring the shadows down a bit. And I'd also add in a bit more saturation. And this is when I probably add my LUT. So I've got a base orange and teal LUT from this online course called Full Time Filmmaker. Would definitely check it out. So it really brings out those blues, this. So not too much, I'd probably put it about 50. Yeah, we got 56.8, that looks all right. And this is when I'll start to play with the S curve. So we'll start making little S's. So really bringing those shadows down, really harsh shadows here, and then bringing those highlights right up. And this image, to be honest, we'll just bring the exposure up a little bit. And there we go. That's pretty much how I did all of them. So if you take away, there we go. That's before, and we still got the Rec 709 LUT. So, and then adding that back in, bam. Okay, moving on and talking about sound design. So sound design is so important in these sort of videos. It really is 50% of the viewing experience. So if you don't have sound design, it's all going to be a little bit dead. So I'll just show you just the sound design just by itself, just so you can sort of see a rough idea of what sounds I added in. So I would say about 90% of these sounds are artificial. Here we've added a riser just at the very beginning. I've added in some extra slams for when the balls are going down. Some cycling sounds and, you know, some sounds of him being out of breath. And then we got a lot of sort of whoosh sounds to show that sort of moving in or that going past something. And at the end, of course, you've got the sort of glitch sounds to go with that. So there you have it. That's just a quick summary of the production process to make this video. I edited that and then I changed it into different formats so that I could give it to Chris and he could do whatever he wanted on his platforms, and as could I. So we had, you know, a format for YouTube, just 16:9. I made a couple for Instagram stories. I hope that you can take something away from this. And if you can, maybe hit a subscribe and maybe there'll be some more. I've been on 100 subscribers exactly for ages. So I'd love to get to that 101. And I will see you in the next video.